It's a while since I made a video, and I've been wanting to do it for a while, but I've been thinking about what I should talk about. What I've been doing recently is doing research about cults and control systems, and how cults like Scientology keep hold of their members, and how they control what they say, what they do, how they act, and everything else. And really, I've kind of put that whole learning into our current situation in the UK and the West. Let me just hang on a second. That's probably better, isn't it? Bit of sunshine on my face. And it's really about authoritarianism. And, you know, when you think about it, there are echoes of the control that we gave across the globe to governments in locking us down and taking control of our lives. And then that leads on into things like alarmism, climate alarmism, ULEZ areas, controls about what we can and can't do, and why we shouldn't do them, frightening us in the process. But let me give you a little bit of history first. During the Weimar Republic, nearly 50% of doctors signed up to the Nazi Party. And further than that, about 7% of doctors joined the Waffen-SS. That's in comparison to about 1% of the German population, which actually leads to the conclusion, along with other studies, that the more academic you are, the more likely you are to be susceptible to control and cultish action. So what's the point I'm making? Well, the point I'm making about academics is they're more prone to and susceptible to being indoctrinated. And also what I've learned is, when once indoctrinated, like in Scientology, the more fact that you actually place before the indoctrinated person, the more it confirms their belief. So it's very difficult to move someone's belief system once it's in there. This is even more visible in the new religions like identity politics, critical race theory, and gender issues, where despite biological proof and evidence, there are people who believe that a man can be a woman, which is clearly not true. But where else does it lead us? So what else are our governments asking us to do? Well, they're asking us to invest in things like electric vehicles and solar power, and we're told that they're investing in the grid as well, because with hydroelectric power, wind power, nuclear power, which isn't seemingly an option, although it would be my preferred option, to have modular nuclear reactors. Rolls-Royce have produced them, submarines run on them, yet, and they could be placed locally without massive investment in infrastructure. So they'd be less prone to security issues as well. But that aside, they tell us they're investing in the grid as well, because with all that input into the grid itself needs to have investment. But I've also been looking at a few other things which are reality and science. Not the science, a science. And there are a few things I want to mention. I want to mention lunar nodes. I want to mention solar maximums and minimums. And I also want to mention the polar effect. And with regards solar maximums and minimums, they last. It takes about 11 years for the sun to start to change what it's doing, and it's changing its magnetic fields and its magnetic poles. And in a minimum, you don't see any much solar flares or sunspots. You don't get many solar flares or escapes of plasma. Now, when an escape of plasma happens and it hits the Earth, we're very, very lucky, because we are protected by two things. We have a magnetic field around us, and we also have the atmosphere. They both protect us from most of the effects of solar flares. Well, let me tell you about a solar flare that happened way back in 1859, and it's called the Carrington event. Now, during that major coronal mass ejection, plasma was shot out into the solar system, and it hit Earth in August 1859, when the major electrical things we had in terms of communication were actually what are they called? Telegraph systems. And those electrical systems, and most electrical systems around the Earth, failed. The aurora borealis could be seen as far south as the Caribbean, and indeed, when unplugged from their battery systems, some telegraph systems could actually still operate because of the electricity that was still in the air. That's how powerful the sun is. And that Carrington event happened in a solar maximum. We're entering a solar maximum now, and we're told that in 2024 to 2025 we're going to see major effects of solar flares and those major coronal mass ejections with the plasma hitting Earth. So what's that mean? It means that anything electrical with grids that haven't got fail-safes in them will fail. Now let's think of that on a most basic level. Your fridge isn't going to work, so your food's going to go. If you cook by electricity, you won't be able to cook what food you've got, so it will be wasted completely. Mobile phones, you won't be able to charge them, and I'll come back to mobile phones. Electric vehicles, you won't be able to charge them. And Earth systems can literally fry they can just completely fry. So anything connected to the grid and earth is going to be a problem. So if your electric vehicle is being charged at the time, maybe that will be dead as well. I mean dead even when it's off the charger. But what else does plasma affect? Well, it will affect all the satellites we've got up in the sky in low Earth orbit, and those satellites control our communication systems, and those satellites control our GPS systems. So your mobile phone, even if it's charged, won't be able to tell you where you are, and with ground systems failing with electricity, you will not be able to connect to Wi-Fi. So you'll have no communication. We'll go back to a time, even if it's for the briefest of periods, where we have real problems on Earth. Why do I mention this? Well, I mention this because so what are lunar nodes? Lunar nodes are the 2 points in the moon's orbit around the Earth, where it comes out of the 5% elliptical and aligns with the Earth's axis. Of course, that happens every orbit of the moon, but the Earth also orbits the sun, and the sun in that orbit around the sun, the Earth will get to a point where the nodes of the moon's orbit will align with the sun's. So what will be the effect? Well, let's first talk about the effect of the moon. The moon causes the tidal effect, that is the bulging of the water on the Earth towards the midriff. It causes a bulge on the opposite sides of the moon as well as the sides of the moon. So don't think that it all just bulges towards the moon, and that's to do with the gravitational effect of the Earth itself. But the sun also causes tidal effect. It's about 30% of the moon's effect. It's much greater, or its effects would be much greater if we were actually nearer to the sun. But perhaps we'd have a little bit less water. So when those nodes align, so you have a perfect alignment of the Earth, Moon and Sun, the tidal effect is much greater, and that happens every 9 years or so. It's about to happen. So the effect will be massive tides, and those massive tides, although an effect of water, will be blamed on climate change. Climate change will have affected the amount of water that's in the system, but that's unfrozen water. But it won't have affected the fact that this will happen anyway. And what has changed? Well, we've built more places around the coast, so we will see the effect upon mankind much more as we continue to try and utilise coastal areas instead of understanding that we're not as powerful as we might think. So that's lunar nodes and tides. If you think it's not real, then look at the event that happened in a solar minimum with the greater Quebec area where the grid was completely wiped out. It is likely to happen. But there's another event, and I mentioned lunar nodes. Now, a lunar node is either of the two orbital. A lunar node is either of the two orbital nodes of the moon. That is, the 2 points in which the orbit of the moon intersects the ecliptic. The nodes take 18 years to make that full lunar orbit, and it takes 18 years for the nodes to return to the spot they were in the sky. What are those nodes? Well, they're the angle at which the moon is tilting towards the Earth. And the greater angle, the greater the lunar effect. And what does the moon do? It actually pulls all the water on Earth towards it. It makes the tides. It also affects our safety system, our magnetic fields, and they're due to occur. So what's the government telling us about these things? Well, they don't want to panic us, do they? They only want to tell us about wars in Ukraine and everything else. But these things are important. They are literally a drop in the ocean when put next to the catastrophic events which could actually occur. And do we worry about them? No, they will happen. Will it affect mankind? Yes, it will. Are we to be worried about them? No. We shouldn't be worried about stuff like that. So what are the farmers doing across the world? Well, Paris is currently under siege. There's the same sort of protests going on in Germany and in Poland. And why? Because farmers across the globe are being asked to give up farming, stop producing food and planting trees. Diesel is being made more expensive for them. Red diesel is being made obsolete, and they're going to have to buy normal diesel. What's that mean to us? Food will become A, more scarce, and B, more expensive. And what have we got left to eat? Insects and plants. So where does that leave us? That leaves us with some experts saying that actually it's technology which is going to reduce CO2 levels in the atmosphere, not planting trees. Because no matter how many trees we plant, we won't actually capture all the CO2 that we've emitted and rebalance that. So they're talking about using technologies to capture CO2 out of the atmosphere and washing it, in layman's terms. And I am a layman, I'm not an expert, and you should go and read up on these things yourself.